Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Today we'll be studying an opening prayer. Now, this is a continuation of last sermon that I gave last month. And be first correct in that it's about technology, but it's more fundamentally about us knowing who we are and being able to reveal and manifest the gifts that we have to share with the world, and to not allow ourselves to be distracted into oblivion. I'd like to start with a quote from St. Paul. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever we think about expands. Whatever we focus on grows in our life. So we need to ask ourselves, what are we thinking about? What are we focusing on? What are we manifesting in our day-to-day life? And just to recap on the last lecture, the tale of three brains. We have a robot brain. And this is not a neuroscientist's opinion, okay? But there's a part of our brain which is automatic. It runs on automatic. Once you've learned to do a certain task competently, it gets transferred to your robot brain, and you can then function without any conscious thought doing that. Those of you who are drivers, you drove here, do you consciously remember driving? Maybe right at the very beginning and right at the very end when you parked, but everything in between was you were thinking about other things like, oh, I hope the service is going to be okay, and oh, James, oh no, not again. What's he talking about? You know, your mind is occupied by other thoughts. That's the robot brain, and it's very efficient. Second of all is our monkey brain, which is the part of our brain which is very much interested in what's going on around me. Oh, what's he wearing? Oh, his hair looks different. Oh, that's a nice dress. Oh, you know, it's constantly looking and noticing differences in our environment. It's basically a survival brain, but nowadays it leads us onto many uncharted territories. And thirdly is our sage brain. This is the part that really makes us human. This is the part that contemplates God, contemplates existence, contemplates meaning, contemplates purpose, tries to figure out how to balance our life. This is the sage brain, which unfortunately, as we all know, gets crowded out with bad habits that we indulge in with our robot brain, taking us into the precipice. Hey, stop doing that, you know. And then also the monkey brain, which crowds out the sage brain. And then eventually the sage brain is left with very, very few percentage points as far as how much time we spend contemplating our life and our meaning and our purpose and our direction. So that's a recap of the last lecture. And just to give you an idea of the amount of energy spent or time spent, 95% of our function is on automatic pilot. So, the question I have today is, we know that we have a purpose in life. We know that we have a unique sense of who we are. But what is stopping us? What is our kryptonite? What is it that really cripples us in our day-to-day function and in our life's purpose? And the answer is, drum roll, distractions!
Wow.
We are living in an age of increasingly hostile almost, thank you so much, thank you, hostile almost distractions. I don't want to put it too much close to the technology. We're living in an age of many distractions. And we have to be careful because these distractions are especially addictive. 5 years ago, a lot of these sites didn't even exist. And we're just getting more and more of them. Now, technology is leading us, it's basically something we created in order to make our lives richer, more communicative, more expressive, more, bridging the gap between people and spaces so that we can communicate with each other around the world. But along with every tool, there's a good use and there's a destructive use. And the solution is not going to be to get rid of things altogether, but rather to learn to use them wisely. So, here are some statistics to think about. The average teenager sends 4,000 texts per month. That is one every 6 minutes. Some of you might be even sending one right now. Get me out of this. And then we have 53% of us, and this is us older folks, report checking email whilst driving. Guilty. 61% of us continue to check email while on vacation. Guilty. One study showed that office workers check email up to 40 times per hour. Email. That's like, if you can imagine people growing up without a computer, that's you running out to the mailbox. Anything go? Running back into the house. Running out to the mailbox. Anything go? Running back. Doing that 40 times an hour. Is that crazy or not? Crazy. 67% of us check our phone for messages, alerts, even when it's not ringing or vibrating. Guilty. 75% of us admit to using our phone in the bathroom.
Gross.
I know, it's gross.
Unsanitary.
And guilty. And this is probably one of the best reasons not to share phones. 69% of us cannot go to sleep without checking our email. Okay, I don't know if that's me, but that's pretty extreme. I need to sleep, but I can't. I need to check my email. 43% check our email in the middle of the night. Okay, I don't know about you, but that's crazy. 35% of us check our phone before getting out of bed. So the first thing you do in the morning, before, greeting your loved ones, or before, praying, or before anything, you check your email. 38% of us routinely check our email at the dinner table. So we're not just losing our mind, we're also losing our manners. I remember being at a restaurant and it was a mother-daughter sitting at a table. The daughter was a teenager and the mother's just sitting there looking at her daughter and her daughter's looking at her phone. And I thought, okay, this is just a temporary thing. And I go back to the table. I was a server at that time. And still, same scenario. Mother's looking at the daughter. Daughter's looking at her phone, texting. And this goes on for like half an hour. And I can't remember, but I felt like I had to say I wanted to say something, but I couldn't. It's not my job. But that's really sad that you're in a room. And how many of us are guilty of this? You're in a room with friends of yours, and you're texting the people that are not even there in the room with you. Okay? That's pretty rude. What about you having a meal with your family and you take a call, or a text comes, or an email comes, and it's really not that important. It's not like, I'm waiting for news from the hospital or something like that. It's just a regular call, just a regular email. It's like somebody can just swoop into your life, tap you on the shoulder, and you're like, yes, what? So this is not just a young people's problem, okay? The last one, I think you've been reading ahead of me. An average of over 1,000 people treated each year for texting whilst walking. And there's some YouTube videos that show this, kind of funny. It's kind of sad, really, but people have been known to walk off cliffs. Just walk up a cliff. Not intentionally, just because they were texting. This texting whilst walking, we've got over 4,000 people dying so far in recorded history. This problem has only been around for like 15 years, and already 4,000 people have died because they're not paying attention to what they're doing whilst they're texting and walking. Not a young people problem. This is 18 to 24-year-olds, that's the green patch. 25 to 34-year-olds, that's the yellow patch. The red patch is 35 to 54-year-olds. I think the only people that are really immune are the 65 and overs. They occupy 2% of this distraction problem. So, not a young person's problem exclusively. But, obviously, young people are more addicted than most. So there was this article on the CNN Online that was written by this psychiatrist, and she gave these 10 indications that you might have a problem. So I'll just run through them quickly. So number 1, you have intense feelings of guilt and pleasure when on screens. In screen time, it's interfering with your engagement in other activities. True or false? Don't answer. Secondly, the first thing you do when you wake up is grab your phone. Thirdly, you can't control your gaming, video, or iPhone use and sneak around or say you're working and lie about your use of tech. In our house, it's the bathroom. What are you doing in there? Oh, nothing. You've been in there an hour and a half. When are you getting out? You feel compelled to check your phone, play computer games throughout the day, and feel anxious, agitated, or depressed if you can't. You take your phone with you to the bathroom. You'd rather stay home and hang out online than go out and socialize in real life. I don't like real life. I prefer my online friends. I prefer the friends that I can't see, touch, or feel, or even know. You feel anxious if you don't have your phone with you. You obsess about being on tech even when you're not online. You have to check your phone during meals, and while in the car you text and drive even though you know it's dangerous and in some states against the law. You just can't put your phone away even when you know you should and you promised you would. And then you prefer life on screens to life online. Before cell phones were invented, television was invented, and it became quite apparent to a lot of psychiatrists that people preferred family sitcoms and watching other people's families on the screen than their own families. So that was already a problem, that people prefer online things or screen characters. Back in my day, the Cosby Show was this big, thing, and we loved watching the Cosby Show, and we enjoyed that family, but we looked at each other and I don't really like my own family. So What are we going to do about this? What I'd like to point out is that this habit or these distractions are really tearing us apart. This is actually a very, very serious thing, not just from a business point of view and the loss of productivity of companies, which basically it's estimated that billions and billions of dollars of productivity are lost every year. The GDP, the cost of distractions is huge in just one country alone. But from a mental point of view, when we go back to the original purpose of our lives, what are we here for? What gifts are we here to share with one another? When we go to the grave, we don't want to be lying on our deathbed thinking, oh shoot, I didn't get around to doing these wonderful things that I was inspired to do. You know, there's enemy forces in this universe that are conspiring to stop you from sharing your gifts with the world. And the first thing that will happen is you might even think that your gifts are nothing special. You might be tempted to thinking that I'm just an ordinary person. I'm just a regular person, just like everyone else. There's nothing that I have. There's no experience, there's no juxtaposition of experiences that I've gone through that have made me a unique person with unique qualifications, with a unique skill set that I can now then share with the world. No, I don't have that. You might be tempted into thinking that you're nothing special. And that's wrong. That is not true. When we think about the psychology of distractions, when you take 1 minute to look at something online, and you try to get back to focusing on what you were doing, it takes on average 23 minutes and 15 seconds. So let's just say 25 minutes is gone. That moment of distraction has robbed you of 25 minutes of your life. Gone. If any of you have read this book, The Screwtape Letters, it's outlined much more beautifully than I can explain right now. It's basically a book by C.S. Lewis explaining about a senior demon explaining to his younger nephew how to tempt people correctly. The art of temptation. And he says, oh yes, I mean I'm just paraphrasing now, but he says, oh yes, you're really looking for the big temptation and you want to share that, but actually the path to hell is paved with tiny little nuances, and it feels soft and comfortable underfoot, not rocky and thorny and hard. No. It's the velvet touch of one distraction after another, after another, after another, softly, and then before you know it, your subject finds himself, oh, I don't know where I am anymore. Totally lost. So that's the art of temptation. If you want to read that book, it's a great book. It explains in more detail than I can explain right now how Satan is working in our lives to take us off course. So we are fragmenting our minds. We are depleting our ability to be fully present in any one area of our life. We're worried about our Twitter feed, we're worried about our Instagram post, we're worried about our Facebook appeal, we're worried, that this technology is representing us in the wrong way, so we have to coiffure it, we have to kind of condition it, so we have to make it look like we're having this fabulous lifestyle, when in fact we're not, because we're basically working on our presence all the time. And the people around us, physically around us, well, we're not really there. When we're in the waiting room in some place or other, we're not observing people anymore. We're not looking around, contemplating, what am I doing with my life? We're just distracting ourselves into oblivion. What's my email? Oh, busy. We can be very busy doing nothing. It is possible that you come back after a day of out there and you feel like you've been skating and skating and skating, and then all you've been doing all day long is a big figure of 8. But now you're back to where you started from. It is possible to be busy and not go anywhere. It is possible to be climbing the ladder and not know that it's leaning on the wrong wall. It is possible when you don't live a reflective life, when you don't contemplate what you're doing every day, when you're not consciously aware of who you are, what you're doing, and where you're going, to spend hours, weeks, months, years, and throw it all away. And that's a commodity you'll never get back. Time. It's very precious. Our true gift to the world, by a matter of 1,000 cuts, is being squelched. It's being hidden. It's being smothered. Our potential is eviscerated. Click by click by click. Not all at once. Softly, softly. Tap, tap here. Tap, tap there. On your way. Keep walking. Keep thinking you're being productive. Keep thinking you're having a productive life. On you go. Yes, keep walking. Keep walking. You're not even looking up to see where you're going. That's fine. That's fine. Just keep looking down. Keep looking down. So we all lose out as a result. You lose the ability to share your gift with the world. We lose the ability to receive your gift. So we're all losers as a result of allowing ourselves to be distracted into oblivion. But again, I want to say, the solution for all car accidents, which are tragedies in themselves, is not to remove all cars from the world. The real solution is to learn how to drive properly. The solution to all these distractions that every one of us is exposed to and struggling with is not to go live in a cave at the foot of the Himalayan mountains or at the peak of the Himalayan mountains or anywhere. Don't live in a cave. We want you to share your gift with the world. We want to see, we want to experience your gift. You're a unique child of God. You have something precious that you haven't maybe yet discovered. You're not even aware of because it's been smothered. You haven't been able to reflect long enough on your life to figure out who you are yet. And you've been bombarded with all these negative self-talk and negative images and negative thoughts that prevent you from really exposing the diamond inside of you. And so you haven't discovered yourself, and we haven't discovered you. And so we all lose. Let's not allow ourselves to be distracted into oblivion. So I'd like us to consider in our discussion, what is our kryptonite? What is really stopping us from allowing God to work through us? And how do we plan to wrestle back control of our attention and our life? Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, once again we thank you for your constant loving towards us. We know that, like the sun, you always give out your love. But like clouds and like darkness, we hide away from you, or we are shielded from your love, and our potential is lost. We are only designed to function fully when we are plugged into you. And when we're not, we have limited value. We have limited ability to give or to share because we have limited power. We have limited love. We have limited understanding and intelligence. So help us to humble ourselves to the reality that we are your children and we belong in a relationship with you. Please help us to understand that deeply, not just intellectually, not just, oh, that's a nice idea, No, deeply, to the core of our being, let us remind ourselves constantly that we are here for a short time to have this experience where we can build something with you before we go on our journey into the spiritual dimension to live with you eternally. Help us to stay connected consciously with you so that we can be the kind of people that when we look back on our lives, we can be truly proud of that accomplishment. So thank you once again for guiding us, for never giving up on us. Help us to understand the forces that are arrayed against us, especially the forces that we have created in the form of technology, that if we are not clear about who we are, we're going to easily allow ourselves to be distracted into oblivion. Help us to have control over our environment, over ourselves. Help us to be the masters of our own fates. Please be with each and every one of us. I offer this prayer through Christ our Lord. Adieu and Amen. Thank you very much.